What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our iOS development with UIKit tutorial series. And in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at how we can select photos from our photos library using the UIImagePickerController. Now, this is one of two ways that you can select photos from your photos library, and we'll cover the second way that we can do it in a later video. But for now, we're going to take a look on solely at UIImagePickerController. Now, what is so unique about UIImagePickerController as opposed to doing it the other way that we talked about instead? Well, the thing about UIImagePickerController is that this controller not only allows you to select an image from your photos library, but it also allows you to select movies, which the other way can also do. So what else really makes this special? Well, not only are you able to select photos and videos, but you're also able to access the camera, the native camera interface, to take photos and videos. With the way that we're going to cover to pick photos from your photos library, you can't do that. So if you want to have a native iOS, iPadOS camera experience without having to do all the work to configure a camera feed and then hook up all the UI controls to do what you need to do, UIImagePickerController is perfect for what you'll need to do. So let's go ahead and run the app, and we'll see exactly what we're working with here. So if we go into Xcode, I am going to go into Activity View, go Path, and I'm going to change the run destination. We'll say my Mac, and then we'll run it here. All right. Let it do its thing. All right, so this is what we have right now. To start with, I have a UI button at the bottom of our application that says Tap Me. And then in the center, I have a UI image view that is 300 by 300 points wide and tall. I've gone and given it a border using the border width and border color properties of the CA layer for our for the UI image view, just so we can kind of see what where that image view is. Now, the whole idea behind what we're going to do here is we're going to tap that button. That button will then open a UIImagePickerController displaying to us our photos library, and then if we have any photos in there, what it will do is it will then display that to the user in the UI image view. Now, my Mac, I am not entirely sure whether or not we actually have any photos in my photos library here, but if we do, then we'll be able to see it. Otherwise, we won't. Either way, this will be a good learning experience. So, let's go ahead and go into Xcode and get started. Inside of our main VC, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to conform to the UI Navigation Controller delegate and UIImagePickerController delegate protocols. UI Navigation Controller is something that we're effectively required to implement from in order to make this work. So we're not going to do anything special with UI Navigation Controller delegate. We just have to conform to it. So we'll say UI Navigation Controller delegate. And then UI Image Picker Controller delegate. Like that. All right. So next, we need to actually summon our picker. And we will do this inside of our buttons action method. So we'll say let picker equals UI image picker controller. And then next we'll configure our picker. There are certain properties for UIImagePickerController that will apply to what we're doing in terms of actually selecting a photo from the photos library. Others, they won't necessarily apply to this use case because they are specific to being able to access the camera and all that sort of stuff. And I'll point them out as we go along. So, below where we instantiate our UIImagePickerController object, we're going to say picker dot. Now, delegate is the first property that our autocomplete comes up with. And we will need this. This is going to define the delegate object that the UIImagePickerController uses to, for example, run code when the cancel button is tapped, or when the user is done selecting a photo or a video. So we'll say delegate equals self, because our view controller is conforming to that UIImagePickerController delegate protocol. Next, we'll say picker dot source type, and what this will allow us to specify is where do we want to get data from? Do we want to get it from the photos library? Do we want to get it from the camera? Where do we want to get it from? So we have camera, we have photo library, and then we have saved photos album. We want photo library. Next, we'll say picker dot allows editing. Now, this Boolean property requires some level of emphasis because allows editing will affect how we retrieve the image or video that is selected by the user. So if it's true, we allow the user to, for example, apply different transformations and different effects, different filters, stuff like that to their image. In which case, we would want to get that edited image as opposed to the original image that was selected. That is important for one of our delegate methods. If you do not want the user to be able to make those kinds of edits to the image or video that they select, you can set this to false. We'll set this to true. And we'll say picker dot. Camera capture mode is a camera source type specific property. And this will basically determine whether or not you want to take a photo or take a video with the camera. Camera device, again, is a camera source type specific property that allows you to specify which camera is being used on the device. So is it the front-facing camera? Is it the back-facing camera? Which is it, right? So whatever camera you want to use, you would use camera device to specify that. Camera flash mode is pretty self-documenting. This basically allows you to specify whether or not your flash mode for the camera should be on, off, or automatic. Automatic is where the system uses the lighting conditions in the camera feed to determine whether or not to turn flash on or off. Right, so those are some of the properties that you could use here. You can also specify some media types as well. So if you want specific kinds of media to show up, you can, in your, for example, your photo library, you could do that. There's all kinds of other ones, like, for example, setting the maximum duration of a video, specifying the video quality, stuff like that. Things that we don't have to worry about in this case scenario, but they are important to consider depending on how you want to use UIImagePickerController. All right. So with that, we have configured our UIImagePickerController. Next, we want to actually present this image picker. So we'll say present picker. And then we'll say animated. And we'll set that to true, like that. We'll go ahead and save that, and we'll run it now. All right, we have a successful build here. All right, so here we are in our app again. We have our image view, and then we have our button. Let's tap on the button and see what happens. When this button is tapped, what it will do is it will summon our image picker. Now, this, again, is showing our photos library because that's what we selected as our source type. So you can see I don't have any photos in my Photos app. But if you did, you could select them, and then when you select it, it'll show up in your image view. But if we hit the cancel button on this picker, generally speaking, that's not going to work. Other times it might. It looks like on macOS it does work that way. But how do we actually dismiss this sheet on, for example, iOS? Well, let's go into Xcode. Let's go down to the very bottom of our view controller. And we will actually provide implementations for image picker controller did cancel. And all we want to do in this case is just call dismiss and say true or false for whether or not we want that to be animated. And that's it. That's really all we need to do for did cancel. Because we don't want to save anything. We don't want to display anything. We just want to dismiss our picker by default. Now, how we handle selecting an image is slightly different. So here we'll have image picker controller did finish picking media with info. That is the next method we need to provide actual code for. And all this method is going to do is it's going to define what should happen when we actually choose an image or a video in our photos library, or when we choose to use a photo or a video that we took with the camera. Right? So first thing that we need to do is we need to get the actual UI image, in our case, that we selected. Now, we get this from the info dictionary that we are provided in this method. However, there are two different keys that we need to consider. Remember that Boolean allows editing that I talked about? That determines which key that you access. If you allowed editing, you're going to want the edited image key for that. If you don't, then the original image property, or original, will be the key that you want. So how then do we get that UI image? Well, what we can do is we can say guard let selected image equals info dot, and we have original image, we have crop rect, edited image, image URL, live photo, media metadata, media type, media URL. You get the idea. We want the edited image in this case because we have allows editing set to true. If that was set to false, again, original image is what you're going to want to retrieve from this dictionary. Once we have that from the dictionary, this value is not of type UIImage, it's of type any. So we have to cast it to a UI image. And we can do that by saying as UI image, and then if that doesn't succeed, we simply want to return. Because if what we selected isn't an image and it can't be converted to a UI image, we can't do anything. So just get out of the method early. All right. Now that we have that image, we can say image view dot image equals selected image. And once we've done that, then we can say dismiss true or false, dismiss the sheet after that. Just like that. All right. So we have that now. I'm going to go ahead and try to add an image to my photos library just so we can get this, just so we can see if this will work. So we'll say Command Shift, we'll say 3. Take a screenshot of the entire screen. And then I'm going to open up my Finder here. And, okay, we want screenshot here. We'll say share. Okay, so I'm actually going to do a jump cut here, so you don't see anything in my sharing services picker thing for macOS. So 1 moment. Alright guys, so now that I have a photo in my photos library on my Mac, I can go ahead and switch over to that as my run destination. So we'll go into toolbar. I will change the run destination to my Mac. Now the process for selecting an image using UIImagePickerController when you run the app in Mac Catalyst is exactly the same as it would be on iOS or iPadOS. When we hit our Tap Me button, what'll happen is we will our image picker will show up. And then inside of that image picker, we select some kind of media. excuse me, we'll select a type, we'll select some kind of media, whether it be a photo or a video or whatever, or we can hit cancel, depending on what we actually do. All right, here we go. So here's our app. You can see we have our 300 by 300 points image view there in the center, and then we have our Tap Me button beneath it. So we'll hit Tap Me. And here is our Photos Picker on macOS. So inside of our All Photos here, we have a singular image. So we can select this, and you can either hit Cancel or Use. I'm going to say Use. And when we hit Use, that triggers our did finish method there, and it runs the code that we have in that. So it gets the edited image from our dictionary and then converts that to a UI image. Once it's done doing that, and if it was successful, it goes ahead and sets the image property of our image view and dismisses our picker, which is exactly what happened. So here we have now that screenshot that I took displayed in our image view, exactly how we intended it to happen. Now, keep in mind that the image picker is slightly different on iOS and iPadOS, but if you've ever put an image in, if you've ever selected an image in an app before, generally it's the same as you would in those other apps. So it's not too complicated to figure out. With that pretty much does it for this video on UIImagePickerController. Now, before I go, I want to give you guys a challenge. Now, if you recall throughout the video, we covered a couple of the properties, or briefly mentioned a couple of the properties that are for using the camera. Right? So what I want you to do, what this challenge is going to be, is I want you to figure out how you can use UIImagePickerController to take a photo. Use the camera to take a photo, and then put that photo that you took into the UI image view instead of having it be selected from your photo library. Now, a video is going to be a little bit more complicated, but that's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to, at a minimum, go ahead and figure out how to take a photo with the camera and then display it in our image view here. Now, to get you started, though, I should mention that in order to use the camera, you need an entry in your info plist file. This is specifically so your user can be prompted for whether or not they want to grant your app permission to use the camera. This is required whenever you use camera access. So every time an app needs to access the camera, if it hasn't received access beforehand, it'll prompt the user, hey, do you want to, this app needs to use the camera. Do you want to allow it? So that requires that you have a specific key in your plist. And in the specific one you're looking for is camera usage description. So privacy camera usage description, or if you want the raw key instead of the localized name, it'll be NS camera. It'll be NS camera usage description. There we go. That's what it is. So all that will be is it'll pretty much be a key where its value is a string, and this string is going to be the reason why your app needs to use the camera. This string will be displayed to the user, so be cautious about that in particular. To add a new key to your info plist, it's as simple as going and hovering over a cell in your plist, hitting that plus button that appears, and then using that combo box to find the right key. If you don't want to do it that way, you could edit the XML yourself, though I would not recommend doing that unless you absolutely know what you're doing, because if you screw something up, the entire thing will just break. You could also right-click on one of the cells and say Add Row, so you can do it that way as well. I will warn you though, it is a bit of a pain in the rear end for screen reader users, because the plist editor is not fully accessible with a screen reader. It is a pain to use, so just keep that in mind. Nothing I can really do about that. So that pretty much does it, guys. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.